First contact gone wrong. The RSS Hawking drifted silently through the void, its sensors probing the darkness ahead. Dr. Elena Santos stood at the main observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the massive structure that filled their view. After 20 years of deep space exploration, the research vessel had finally found something extraordinary, a construct that defied human understanding. Primary scans complete. Doctor, announced Chief Science Officer John from his station. The structure's approximately 48 kilometers in length. Energy readings are, well, they're off the charts. Whatever this is, it's active. Elena nodded, her fingers unconsciously tracing the worn edges of her father's old compass that hung around her neck. The artifact before them resembled a massive double helix, constructed of some dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Occasional pulses of blue energy coursed through its length, like blood through veins. "Captain Morrison," Elena called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I recommend we move closer. Those energy signatures match theoretical patterns for quantum tunneling. This could be a transportation device." Captain Sarah Morrison stood from her command chair, her weathered face creased with concern. At 53, she'd seen enough of space to know that the most fascinating discoveries often carried the greatest risks. "Dr. Santos, the last time humanity encountered alien technology, we lost the Europa colony. I need your absolute certainty that we can approach safely." The reminder of Europa sent a chill through the bridge. 3 years ago, an automated mining operation had uncovered what appeared to be a dormant alien beacon. Within hours of activation, the entire colony had vanished, leaving behind only scrambled transmissions and haunting questions. "This is different," Elena insisted, pulling up holographic data streams with practiced gestures. The Europa artifact showed signs of decay, but this structure is perfectly maintained. Someone's still home. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. First contact. Real first contact, not just the discovery of ancient ruins or automated systems. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. Multiple energy spikes. John's alarmed voice cut through the tension. Something's happening. The massive structure pulsed with increasingly bright waves of energy. Geometric patterns appeared along its surface, forming and dissolving like digital frost on a window. The Hawking sensors screamed with alerts as space itself seemed to twist around them. "Evasive maneuvers," Morrison ordered, but it was too late. A beam of coherent energy lanced out from the structure, bathing the Hawking in brilliant blue light. Every system on the ship surged with power, then went dark. Elena grabbed her console as artificial gravity fluctuated. Emergency lights cast red shadows across frightened faces as the crew worked to restore power. Through the observation windows, she could see new shapes emerging from the structure. Vessels of some kind, their designs as alien as the construct itself. "Communications, get me Earth Command," Morrison commanded. "We need tow." "Captain," Elena interrupted, her eyes fixed on her readings. "They're not attacking us. This is a scan. They're reading everything. Our databases, our systems, She paused, horror dawning on her face. "They're downloading our entire historical archive." Morrison's face hardened. "Lock down the systems. Encrypt everything." "Too late," John reported grimly. "The download's complete. They know everything about us now." The alien vessels approached, their hulls shifting like liquid metal. They took up positions around the Hawking, not threatening, but clearly establishing control of the situation. The structure's energy pattern stabilized, and main power returned to the ship. A new hologram materialized on the bridge, a message in perfect English. "Humanity of Earth, you have accessed restricted space. Your species' history has been analyzed. Your capacity for violence and technological advancement has been deemed a potential threat. You will be contained until the Council determines your fate. Resistance will be met with immediate defensive measures." Defensive measures. Morrison's voice dripped with bitter irony. They just downloaded our entire civilization's history without permission, and they're calling us the threat. Elena's mind raced. The aliens had judged humanity based on raw historical data without context, without understanding the progress they'd made, the lessons they'd learned. They'd seen humanity's wars but missed their poetry, noticed their weapons but overlooked their music. "Captain," she said slowly, an idea forming. "They may have our history, but they don't understand who we are now. And they've just made a crucial mistake." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "They've assumed we'll react like their data predicts." Elena smiled grimly. "But if there's one thing humans are good at, it's defying expectations." The alien vessels maintained their formation as the crew of the Hawking began to plan. They had no weapons that could match this advanced civilization, no technology that could counter their capabilities. But they had something that no database could quantify: human ingenuity, creativity, and the stubborn refusal to be judged by their past. The first contact had gone wrong, but the real test was just beginning, and humanity had a lot to prove. The price of knowledge. 6 hours into their containment, the crew of the RSS Hawking had made a surprising discovery. Their captors were terrified. Dr. Elena Santos stood in the ship's data center, surrounded by holographic displays showing their analysis of the alien transmissions they'd intercepted. The messages weren't perfectly encrypted, almost as if their captors wanted them to catch fragments of information. What they found painted a disturbing picture. "They're calling us the fourth wave," Elena explained to Captain Morrison and the senior staff. "And from what we can piece together, there were 3 previous waves of technological civilizations that nearly destroyed this sector of space." Chief Zhang manipulated the holographic data, highlighting specific patterns. "Their energy signatures are defensive in nature. Every system, every technology they're using. It's all built around containment and protection. They're not an empire. They're survivors." Morrison paced the room, her boots clicking against the metal floor. "So they're not just being hostile. They're following a protocol. They've seen this pattern before, and they're trying to stop it from happening again." "Exactly," Elena said, pulling up new data streams. "But here's where it gets interesting. Their technological development is strange. Advanced in some areas, but almost primitive in others. It's like they're working from a template, following predetermined paths of development." Lieutenant Commander James Chen, the ship's tactical officer, leaned forward. "They're not innovating. They're replicating and maintaining technology they already have." "Fear does that," Morrison mused. "When you're traumatized enough, you stick to what you know works. You stop taking risks." She turned to Elena. "But what does this have to do with these previous waves they're so afraid of?" Elena's fingers danced across the controls, bringing up a new simulation. "We've decoded enough of their historical data to see the pattern. Each wave was a civilization that developed faster than expected, that took technological leaps instead of steps. And each time," she paused, her voice growing quiet, "each time they made the same discovery, something they weren't ready for." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Whatever these previous civilizations had found had been catastrophic enough to warrant this level of intervention, this desperate attempt to control and contain any species that showed similar development patterns. "They're not just afraid of us," Zhang realized. "They're trying to protect us from ourselves. And they're going about it completely wrong," Elena added. "Their solution is to restrict and contain, to force compliance through superior technology. But they've made a fundamental mistake in their assessment." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "They think technological advancement is linear, predictable. Their entire containment strategy is based on preventing us from following the same path as the previous waves. But human development has never been linear. We adapt, we find unexpected solutions, She was interrupted by a sudden shift in the ship's ambient lighting. The alien vessels surrounding them had changed formation, and new energy patterns were emanating from the massive structure. They received new orders from their council. Chen reported, reading the incoming data. They're going to relocate us. The entire ship. They're charging up their transport systems now. Morrison's face hardened. Where are they taking us? Some kind of containment facility. A place where they can study us more thoroughly. And Chen swallowed hard. Begin the adjustment process to ensure we develop along acceptable paths. Elena's hand went to her father's compass again, feeling its familiar weight. The aliens were acting out of fear and trauma, trying to prevent a catastrophe they'd seen before. But in doing so, they were about to make humanity's greatest fear come true. The loss of their freedom to choose their own path, to make their own mistakes, to learn and grow on their own terms. "Captain," she said, her voice steady, "I think I know what happened to those other civilizations. And more importantly, I think I know why we're different." Morrison nodded for her to continue, but at that moment, the ship shuddered as the transport process began. Through the viewports, they could see space itself beginning to twist and fold. "Better make it quick, Doctor," Morrison said, gripping her chair as reality started to bend around them. "I have a feeling we're about to need that insight." Elena pulled up one final data set, her eyes bright with understanding. "The previous waves all developed in isolation, Captain. They reached for the stars alone. But humanity, we've spent our entire history telling stories about meeting aliens. We've imagined this scenario in 1,000 different ways. We've been preparing for this moment for centuries, not just technologically, but culturally, philosophically." The ship shuddered again as the transport beam intensified. But Elena wasn't finished. "They think they're protecting the galaxy from us. But they're wrong. We're not the threat they fear. We might just be the solution they've been waiting for, if they'd stop long enough to actually talk to us." Morrison looked at her senior staff, seeing the same determination reflected in their eyes. The aliens thought they were containing a danger, but they were about to learn an important lesson about humanity. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was underestimate a species that had spent its entire existence dreaming of the stars. As the transport beam reached its peak, the crew of the Hawking prepared themselves. They were about to show their captors that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their development pace. It was their ability to think in ways that no one, human or alien, could predict. Unlikely allies. The containment facility was both beautiful and terrifying. The RSS Hawking floated in a vast chamber that seemed to be carved from a single crystal, its walls refracting light in impossible patterns. Other ships hung suspended nearby, vessels of different designs and origins, all silent testimonies to the Council's intervention protocols. Dr. Elena Santos stood at a viewing port, watching as crystalline maintenance drones moved between the captured ships. She'd been cataloging them. 3 vessels of obvious artificial design, 5 that appeared to be grown rather than built, and 1 that seemed to phase in and out of reality at regular intervals. "They're all dead," Lieutenant Commander Chen reported, joining her at the window. "Or abandoned. We're the only ship showing active life signs. The only ones who fought back hard enough to warrant containing the crew along with the ship," Captain Morrison added, her voice tight with controlled anger. "The others probably surrendered when they saw the Council's power. Accepted their guidance." Elena touched the glass, her reflection overlaying the distant ships. "No, they're not all dead." She turned to face her colleagues. "Some of them are waiting." Before Morrison could respond, the ship's systems detected movement. Through the crystal walls, they watched as a new vessel was brought into the facility, a massive construct of dark metal and pulsing energy lines. The Council's latest catch. "That design," John breathed, checking his readings. "It's completely different from anything in the facility. The energy signature is chaotic, organic almost." Elena's eyes widened as she studied the newcomer. "It's not following any template the Council knows. Look at those hull configurations. They're adaptable, like they can change shape based on need. This isn't a civilization that developed along predicted lines." "Another potential 4th wave?" Morrison asked. "No," Elena smiled. This is something else. Something new. The alien ship was positioned near the Hawking, close enough that they could see details of its unusual construction. Its hull seemed to ripple occasionally, like muscles under skin, and what they had initially taken for weapons ports were actually sensor arrays of incredible complexity. They're scientists, Elena realized. Look at those instruments. They're not built for war or defense. They're for deep space research, quantum analysis, dimensional scanning. And they got too close to whatever the Council is trying to hide. Morrison finished. Just like us. A soft chime echoed through the bridge as their systems detected an incoming transmission. Not from the Council this time, but from the new arrival. The message was composed of mathematical sequences, pure, universal language. Elena's fingers flew over the controls, responding with their own sequence. Numbers became patterns, patterns became symbols, and symbols became understanding. Within minutes, they had established basic communication. They call themselves the Variks, Elena reported, excitement creeping into her voice. They're incredible, Captain. They evolved in a quantum flux zone. Their entire civilization developed in a region of space where our laws of physics are more like suggestions. They don't just think outside the box. They've never even seen the box. Morrison leaned forward. Are they hostile? No. Elena shook her head. They're curious. They've been studying the Council for months, trying to understand why an advanced civilization would choose to stagnate, to enforce technological and cultural conformity across space. And, Morrison prompted, and they think they've found the answer. The same answer I was about to share when we were transported here. Elena pulled up the data they'd gathered about the previous waves. The Council isn't just trying to prevent technological advancement. They're trying to prevent a specific discovery, something that each of the previous waves found independently. The bridge crew gathered around as Elena shared what she'd learned from the Variks. The story that emerged was one of panic, paranoia, and desperate measures taken to prevent a catastrophe that might not even be inevitable. The first three waves each discovered something about the fundamental nature of reality. Elena explained, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about existence. And each time, that discovery led to chaos, to civilizations tearing themselves apart trying to cope with the implications. What kind of discovery could do that? Chen asked. The kind that makes you question everything you believe about consciousness, free will, and the nature of existence itself, Elena replied. The Council thinks they're protecting younger civilizations by controlling their development, preventing them from reaching that point of discovery too quickly. But the Variks found another way, Morrison guessed. Elena nodded. They evolved in an environment where reality itself was fluid. They learned to adapt, to accept uncertainty as a fundamental part of existence. And they think humanity might have a similar capacity, not because of where we evolved, but because of how we think. Morrison studied the alien ship through the crystal walls. You're suggesting an alliance. I'm suggesting a revolution, Elena corrected. The Council's methods aren't just wrong. They're dangerous. Suppressing technological and cultural development doesn't prevent discovery. It just ensures that civilizations are less prepared when they do make those discoveries. The captain was quiet for a long moment, weighing the implications. Finally, she straightened her uniform and turned to her crew. Well then, let's show our new friends how humanity handles paradigm shifts. As if in response, the Variks ship's hull rippled again, patterns of light racing across its surface in what could only be interpreted as enthusiasm. Through the crystal walls of their prison, other ships began showing signs of life. Power signatures that had been dormant flickered to life. Communication arrays activated after long silence. They weren't alone, and the Council was about to learn that trying to control the development of intelligent life was like trying to control the tide. The harder you tried to hold it back, the more dramatic the eventual release would be. The last stand. The crystalline walls of the containment facility blazed with emergency lighting as alarms echoed through its vast chambers. The RSS Hawking hung at the center of a growing rebellion, surrounded by ships that had awakened from their enforced slumber. Leading them all was the Varix vessel, its fluid hull now glowing with patterns that pulsed in time with the facility's warning signals. "They're trying to lock down the facility," Lieutenant Commander Chen reported from his tactical station. "Crystalline barriers forming between sections. They're isolating us." Captain Morrison stood at the center of her bridge, watching as the Council's control over the situation began to crumble. "How many ships have joined us?" 17 confirmed, Elena answered, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she coordinated with their new allies. "The Varix have been teaching us how to communicate across different technological paradigms. Each of these ships represents a completely unique approach to space travel and scientific discovery. And they all found their way here by asking questions the Council didn't want answered," Morrison noted grimly. "How long until they bring in reinforcements?" The facility shuddered as if in response. Through the crystal walls, they could see Council ships emerging from fold space, their designs as rigidly geometric as their philosophy. They took up defensive positions around the facility, weapons charged. "Council vessels demanding our immediate surrender," Chen reported. "There," he paused, frowning at his readings. "They're offering to correct our developmental path, to help us unlearn dangerous knowledge." Elena's hand went to her father's compass, its familiar weight now a reminder of humanity's constant drive to explore and understand. "They still think this is about controlling information. They don't realize that's impossible now." Morrison turned to her science officer. "Explain." "The Varix showed me something incredible," Elena said, pulling up new data streams. "Each of these ships, these civilizations, they all approached the great discovery from different angles. Some through quantum mechanics, others through consciousness studies, still others through dimensional physics. But they all reached for the same truth. The facility's crystal walls seemed to pulse with energy as more Council ships arrived. They were being surrounded, but Elena's excitement only grew. "The Council thinks they can prevent civilizations from making this discovery by controlling their development. But look at these ships, these people, a species that evolved in quantum flux, another that exists partially out of phase with our reality, one that developed biological technology instead of mechanical. They all took different paths, but they all ended up here. Because some truths can't be hidden," Morrison realized. "They can only be discovered." "Exactly." Elena's eyes shone with understanding. The Council's mistake wasn't trying to prevent the discovery. It was trying to prevent civilizations from being ready for it. They've been so focused on control that they've forgotten the most important lesson of scientific advancement, which is that the journey matters as much as the destination. Each of these civilizations developed different tools, different perspectives, different ways of understanding reality. Together, we're not just stronger, we're more prepared. The facility shuddered again as the Council ships began their attack. Crystal walls cracked under the assault, but held. In response, the rebel ships began to move, arranging themselves in a formation that seemed chaotic at first glance, but held a deeper pattern. "The Varix are coordinating our defense," Chen reported with growing excitement. "Each ship is contributing what makes them unique. The phase shifters are creating temporal barriers. The bioships are adapting to absorb energy attacks. The quantum evolved are doing something I can't even describe with our sensors." "And us?" Morrison asked. "What do we contribute?" Elena smiled. "What humanity does best. We adapt. We combine ideas. We take different perspectives and forge them into something new." She pulled up a new display, showing the combined sensor data from all 17 ships. "Look at what we can see when we work together." The display showed more than just the facility and the attacking Council ships. It showed layers of reality they hadn't been able to perceive before, patterns within patterns, connections that defied conventional understanding. And at the center of it all, "That's it," Elena breathed. "That's what they've been trying to hide. The fundamental truth that the first 3 waves weren't ready to handle. The Council ships pressed their attack, but now the rebel fleet moved with perfect coordination, each vessel's unique abilities complementing the others. The Hawking sensors, combined with the Varix's quantum perception and the other ships' varied capabilities, painted a picture of reality that no single civilization could have understood alone. They thought isolation was the answer, Alina said as she watched the battle unfold. Keep civilizations separate, control their development, prevent them from sharing perspectives. But they were wrong. We need each other. Different viewpoints, different approaches, different ways of thinking. That's not just an advantage, it's essential. Morrison watched as another wave of Council ships emerged from fold space. They were outnumbered, but numbers weren't everything. The rebel fleet moved like a single organism now, 17 different approaches to science and technology working in perfect harmony. Send a message to the Council, the captain ordered. Tell them we understand why they're afraid, but tell them also that knowledge isn't the enemy. Fear is, and we're about to show them a better way. As Alina transmitted the message, the rebel fleet began to move in ways that defied conventional physics. The great discovery that the Council had tried so hard to prevent was about to be revealed, not to a single civilization unprepared for its implications, but to a diverse group ready to face it together. The last stand had begun, but it wasn't just a battle for freedom. It was a battle for the right to understand, to grow, to face the universe's greatest truths, not in isolation, but as a community of minds united by their differences rather than divided by them. Beyond the stars, reality itself seemed to bend as the 17 rebel ships moved in perfect synchronization. The Council's fleet, for all its technological superiority, found itself facing something unprecedented, a unified force of civilizations, each contributing their unique perspective to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Energy readings are off the charts, Chief Zhang reported from his station aboard the Hawking. The Varix's quantum sensors are feeding us data I didn't even know could exist. The phase shifters are showing us layers of space-time we never imagined. Dr. Alina Santos stood at her console, watching as the combined sensor data painted a picture of existence that defied conventional understanding. This is what the Council feared. Not just the discovery itself, but this moment. Different species working together, sharing perspectives, seeing the full picture. Through the crystal walls of the containment facility, they could see the Council ships adjusting their formation. Their attacks had become less aggressive, more defensive. They were starting to realize that their superior technology meant little against the combined insights of 17 different approaches to understanding reality. "They're sending another message," Lieutenant Commander Chen announced. They're begging us to stop. They say we don't understand the consequences of what we're about to discover. Captain Morrison's voice was firm. "Send our response. Tell them that's exactly why we need to face this together." Alina's fingers moved across her controls, combining data streams from all 17 ships, the Varix's quantum perception, the phase shifter's temporal insights, the bioship's organic understanding of reality. Each perspective added a new layer to their understanding. And at the center of it all, humanity's gift for synthesis, for combining different viewpoints into a coherent whole. "I can see it now," Alina breathed. The truth they'd been hiding. The discovery that shattered the first 3 waves. She looked up at her captain, eyes wide with wonder. Reality isn't what we thought. Consciousness isn't what we thought. We're all connected. Not just metaphorically, but fundamentally. The universe isn't just alive, it's aware. And we're all part of that awareness. The facility's crystal walls resonated with energy as the combined fleet's sensors penetrated deeper layers of reality. The Council ships had stopped firing, their crews perhaps sensing the futility of trying to prevent what was already happening. The first wave discovered this through quantum mechanics, Alina continued. They found that consciousness affects reality at the most fundamental level. The second wave discovered it through dimensional physics. They found that all points in space-time are connected through higher dimensions. The third wave found it through biological research. They discovered that life itself is an expression of universal consciousness. And they couldn't handle it, Morrison concluded. Their worldviews shattered. Their civilizations collapsed trying to process the implications. Because they faced it alone. Elena nodded. Each civilization made the discovery in isolation, with only their own perspective to try to understand it. But look at us now, 17 different ways of seeing reality, 17 different approaches to understanding. We're not just sharing information. We're sharing perspectives, viewpoints, ways of thinking. The Council ships began to retreat as the combined fleet's power grew. The containment facility's crystal walls pulsed with new energy as the 17 ships worked in harmony, their different technologies and philosophies creating something entirely new. Send a final message to the Council, Morrison ordered. Tell them we understand their fear. Tell them we know why they tried to prevent this. But tell them also that they don't need to be afraid anymore. We're not going to repeat the mistakes of the past. Elena transmitted the message, then watched in amazement as reality seemed to shift around them. The combined perspectives of 17 different civilizations had done more than just reveal the truth. They had shown a way to face it together. The Council ships are standing down, Chen reported. They're requesting to join our connection, to add their perspective to ours. Morrison smiled. Accept their request. Show them what happens when you face the unknown with courage instead of fear. As the Council ships integrated their sensors with the rebel fleet, the full picture became clear. The universe was not just a collection of separate parts, but a single, living, conscious entity. Every species, every civilization was a unique expression of that consciousness, a different way of understanding itself. The humans aboard the Hawking felt their perspective shift as they integrated this understanding. But unlike the first three waves, they weren't facing this revelation alone. They had the Varix's quantum-born acceptance of uncertainty, the phase shifter's grasp of multiple realities, the bioship's intuitive connection to life's patterns, and now even the Council's ancient wisdom to help them process this new understanding. You know what this means, Elena said, her hand touching her father's compass one last time. Everything changes from here. Not just for humanity, but for all of us. Morrison nodded, watching as the combined fleet began to pulse with shared purpose. Not everything changes, Doctor. Some things stay the same. Our curiosity, our drive to understand, our ability to adapt. Those are the traits that brought us here. Those are the traits that will take us beyond. The crystal walls of the containment facility dissolved as the fleet's combined consciousness reached new levels of understanding. They were no longer 17 separate ships plus a Council fleet. They were a community of minds, each unique, each valuable, each contributing to a greater whole. The great discovery that had shattered civilizations in the past had become a foundation for something new. Not an ending, but a beginning. Not a threat to be feared, but a truth to be embraced. And humanity, with its gift for combining perspectives, for finding connections, for building bridges between different ways of thinking, had helped make it possible. As the fleet prepared to explore this new understanding of reality, Elena looked out at the stars. They seemed different now, not distant points of light, but nodes in a vast, living network of consciousness. The universe wasn't just a place to explore, it was a conversation to join. And every civilization, every species, every individual had something unique to contribute to that conversation. The journey that had begun with a simple research mission had led to something far greater. That RSS Hawking and its crew had helped prove that the greatest discoveries didn't have to be feared. They just had to be faced together, with open minds and brave hearts, ready to learn not just from the universe, but from each other.